Okay, good morning. What you're going to learn today is the coil method of construction. Looks somewhat like this. Your objectives for this, what you're being graded on, is that it's how thick? Quarter inch thick. Quarter inch thick. Has to be 12 inches tall, wet. The diameter has to be 4 to 6 inches. It has to be blended both on the inside and the outside. Okay. It has to have a definite shape, consistent shape, and it has to be smooth and finished to completion. Okay. So once again, quarter inch thick, 12 inches wet, 4 to 6 inches in diameter, smooth on the inside and the outside, has to have a definite, consistent form, and has to be smooth and finished to completion. Okay, that's what you're being graded on. I'll talk about the other ones in just a minute. Okay, this is called a coil method of construction. Mostly everything is made this way. A lot of things are made this way. Almost all your advanced projects have some form of coil construction to them. That stuff and stuff in the window, things like that. I'm going to use red clay today, just so you know. That way you see that I use both red and white clay. Remember, 2 of your projects had to be in red clay, 2 of your projects had to be in white clay. I don't care which ones are which. Also, I'm giving you this project today. You don't have to start it on Monday if you don't want to. You can wait. I'll give you your next project, your drape bowl on Tuesday, and then your box on Thursday. As you're building projects, you'll find out that it has to dry some. So it's when you can work on another project. So that's why I want you to work on multiple projects at once. The more you work with it, the better you become. So I'll use red clay. I'm going to take my clay. I'm actually going to wedge again, so you're not sure I'm wedging. Once again, wedging is making sure there's no air pockets. Remember, if it's in the block, you just cut off a piece, you start working with it. If it's in a tube and you cut it and there's no holes in there you can see, then you can start working with it. One thing I've been watching with people wedging, you got to make sure your hands are cupped around the clay, like you're going to choke it out, okay? Don't put it this way, this way. Also, I'm seeing people like try to drive it through the wood. Okay, you don't have to work that hard. Okay, actually, you just kind of lean into it, pull it up, lean into it, pull it up, lean into it, pull it up, and it's going to make that. So. Okay, first thing you do is you're going to make a base. Start off with a ball of clay. How thick do you want your base to be? Do you think? Quarter inch? Quarter inch? Okay. Normally, yes, things are a quarter inch in here. Everything you make in here is going to be a quarter inch. But you want your base to be somewhere between a quarter and a half. You want to be a little thicker because it's your base. You want it to be sturdy. Once again, your diameter is going to be 4 to 6 inches. Just so you have some idea of what I think this is. 4 inches to 6 inches, somewhere between there, here to here. Okay. The reason I pick 4 inches, because that way you can get your hand inside to blend both the inside and the outside. You don't want bigger than 6 inches because it becomes monstrous and becomes hard to handle. So I'll make sure you can be able to handle it. For the demonstration, I'll be making mine smaller than that, just because if I were to make a normal size one, it would take me more time. So I'm going to start with the ball. I'm going to pat it down. You'll be using these more next week for the other 2 projects. This is a rolling pin. They're hanging right up there. You always wash them when you're done with them. And what you do is you can roll it out if you want to, once or twice. Whenever you roll clay on the table, you're always going to roll it just once or twice, and then you're going to turn it over so it doesn't stick to the table. So once or twice, turn it over, once or twice, turn it over, once or twice, turn it over. And I notice right here I have an air pocket. So if you have an air pocket, you can always pop it with a nail tool. And so this is a little bit thicker than a quarter, so this is what I want to use. So I'm going to cut a circle out. I'll make it a little bit smaller than what you're going to make it. So I'm going to make it smaller. Yours will be 4 to 6 inches once again. but for the demonstration purposes, I'm making it a little bit smaller. Okay. What you can use is you can use a banding wheel. Banding wheels are right over there on the cart. This is just to turn your project while you're working on it. Okay. So you can just put it on here. If you don't want it to stick, it can stick, so you can pull it off ever so often, or you can put a piece of plastic over it and put it on top of here if you want to. These are only to be used during the class. I have 36 of them. That's enough for everybody to use it. Make sure you wash it off and shake it off. You don't have to dry with a towel, and put it back where it goes. Make sure there's no clay on there whatsoever. Now I'm going to use this base in just a few minutes, but I'm going to let it sit. Whenever I'm letting clay sit and I'm going to work with it, I just want to mist it a little bit, and then I'm going to cover it with my plastic. I'm just going to set this aside. You don't have to use the banding wheel if you don't want to. I just use it because it's easy to turn. So once again, okay, now I'm going to cut off some pieces. I'm going to start making my coils. So I'm going to cut off a piece. Once again, for that. I'm going to squeeze it into a hot dog shape. So I'm going to squeeze it into a hot dog shape. Okay, also when I'm rolling, I'm going to mist it. I'm going to roll it in my palm. So I'm going to use my palm, not my fingers, not my forearm, but in my palm. And I'll apply light pressure, not a lot of pressure. Okay, so I'm going to roll. The spray bottle is really important in this project. You want to make sure that you're misting every so often while you're on your coils. Now you want to apply light pressure. I know when you guys start doing this, you're going to push too hard. And then if you push too hard, it's going to not roll, it's going to flop around. Okay, so what you do is if you push too hard and it's flat, just put it on its edge, wiggle it back and forth to round it out a little bit, and then start rolling again. Now it's going to take time for you to learn how to roll coils. It doesn't mean that you're not going to use the coils that you roll. The first several coils you roll are going to be fugly. Okay, they're going to be like lines and crooked, and they're going to be gnarly looking, but you still have to use them. How thick do you want to roll your coils out to? Do you think? How thick? Quarter inch. Okay. No. 2 inches? No, not 2 inches. Half an inch. Okay. You want to roll your coils to a half inch because you're going to blend your coils. When you blend your coils, you'll blend them to a quarter inch. You'll turn it into a quarter inch. So you double the thickness that you normally would work. So if it's a quarter inch, and you're going to make it a half, when you make them a half inch, and then when you blend them, they'll be quarter inch, and you'll see that in just a moment. You got to make sure that you are misting your coil as you're rolling. If you do not mist your coil, then the wood will dry it out, and they'll crack, and it won't be very flexible, and you won't be able to use it very well. They'll crumble on you. So I'm always misting when I'm doing this project. Now it doesn't matter how long it is. What matters is that it's the same thickness. Sometimes guys, like, I'm going to make a huge long one. They try to make one as long as a table. You don't have to. You want to make something that's manageable. Now I'm doing this quickly. You don't have to roll this quickly. But I know high school attention span is pretty low. So. Now when you roll these, you want to roll 4 to 6 coils at a time. 4 to 6 before you start building. When you've used those 4 or 6, you want to roll 4 to 6 more before you build again. And this is because this project you have to build gradually. You can't just build it all at once because it's going to be too heavy and it's going to collapse on itself. This project will take the longest for you to build. This one takes about 2 weeks to build. Okay, so we're about a half inch right here. As you roll these coils out, the clay pulls on itself over and over again. And what happens is that it can overlap, and sometimes you can trap air at the ends. So you don't want to trap air. You don't want to have air in your clay. Let me see if I can find it. That's pretty good. This one I think has. You can see right here it has like a little pocket of air in there. Okay, because it got pulled to the outside. So you see that. So what you want to do is that usually the first digit of your finger is usually about an inch. Okay, it's about an inch long. So what you want to do is match it with the end and just pinch it off. And then you get a piece of plastic, put it on there, and wrap it so you're ready to work with it, and you start rolling your other ones out. So now I'm going to cut up another piece of clay. I'll roll 2 more coils out. Okay. Oops. And squeezed into a hot dog shape. Also, while you're rolling your coils out, let's say you've used your first set of coils and you start rolling 2 coils out, and then it's like 10 minutes before the bell rings. So you want to clean up. Don't have to put these coils that you've rolled back in the bin. You want to save those. So just get a piece of plastic, roll it once or twice, fold the ends in, then roll it the rest of the way. So that way you can save them and put them on your shelf, and you can use them the next day. Roll your other ones out, and that way you can have them to work. You just never want to. But you never want to overwork and do the work and not have to use it. I know Zubricki has wooden tables like this, and I have students that have wood shop, and they say, how come your tables don't have polyurethane on them? And that's because if they did, then your clay would stick. These tables are designed so that way it dries out your clay as you're working with it, so you can wedge and work on them. The college I went to, they had canvas on top of theirs. They were thick like this and they had canvas. But because we use red and white clay, I mean, you wash them in college too, you wash them off, but this makes it a little easier to do it this way, instead of having canvas on top. Now I kind of know what a 1/2 inch looks like, more or less, but usually about the thickness of your finger is going to be about a 1/2 inch, or your thumb. If you're a girl, it's your thumb, because your thumb's bigger. Once again, pinch off an inch this side. And you notice that these are, now it doesn't matter the length, but they're the same thickness. Roll one more. That's why I didn't tell you to wash the spray bottles off, because if somebody's using red clay and then somebody's using white clay the next class, then they're going to get red clay and white clay. And they're not two great tastes combined together, so. It's not like chocolate and peanut butter. this off. Okay, so now I have 4 to 6 coils. I'm going to start building. So I'm going to take, which is my smallest coil? This one. So take my banding wheel, take my first coil. Now whenever you start, you can place your coil on top so the edge lines up with the edge, and you're going to blend where you start. Then you follow it around. Make sure your phone's turned off, please. Thank you. And like I said, yours is going to be bigger. Your diameter is going to be bigger. Make sure it's directly on top of the previous coil. And wherever you stop, you're going to blend. Okay. Now the reason you do this is because if you put up the coils together and then you try to blend them, what could you trap in there? Air. So by smooth it down, smooth the other clay on top of it, you minimize that risk. Because now you've smoothed it this way, you've had the other one on top of it, you blend it this way, so you're always trying to minimize the risk of trapping air in your project. So this minimizes it. Okay. So for your first coil, don't add any more coils for your first coil. Start, blend it to the base, stop, blend it to the coil. Now you're going to blend both on the inside and the outside to secure your base, the coil to your base. I'm going to start with the inside first. Now when you blend, normally you either blend with your finger or your thumb. So if you blend with your thumb, you can use your finger as a support, and you're just going to push down on the clay. And if you blend with your finger, you're going to use your thumb as a support, and you're going to push down with your finger this way. Okay? So I usually use my thumb. So I'm going to, and I always blend the inside first. So I'm going to push down. So you can see that I've pushed down and combined the clay coils together on the inside. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go sideways to blend them together to make it smooth. So I've pushed the clay down, the coils together to blend the coils, then I'm going back and going sideways to smooth it out. Because you want your inside to be just as smooth as your outside. And plus it secures the coils together. So now you can see that I've blended the inside and then that it's smooth. Okay. Now I'm going to blend the outside. So once again, I'm going to use my finger as support, or if I want to use my thumb as a support, I can use my fingers to blend down and blend this way. But I'm going to use my thumb. I like my thumb. And I'm going to push down this way, combining the coils together. It's really important that you blend both the inside and the outside to the base. I've had students, not very many, but every once in a while, now I'm going to go sideways and blend, that they forget to blend the inside. They blend the outside first, and they start building, and then they build it, and then they trim it, clean it, and then they fire it, and then I hand it back to them, and then they set it on the table a little hard, they like plot it down, and then the bottom pops off because they didn't blend the inside. So then they have a nice ceramic tube, and there's nothing they can do about it. They just have to make another one. So, and then once again, these banding wheels, every once in a while it'll stick, so you just want to make sure that you check it. And then you can also blend up. Hold your hand for the first coil. And just blend it. I'll show you how to clean this up too later. So now I've gotten it pretty much smooth. So now it's smooth. Also, what do you notice about the thickness of it? 1/4 inch. Okay, so it's got to 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to add my next coils. So I'm going to add my next coil. Now because it's a 1/4 inch and you have a 1/2 inch coil, this is bigger than your thing. So you got to kind of have to eye it and center it in the middle of the underneath it. Then you're going to blend once again where you start. where you left off. And kind of eye it, put it towards the middle, follow it around. Make sure it's kind of like in the middle. And wherever you stop, you're going to blend. Now, as you add your coils, add as many where you left off to your finger height. So here, probably add another coil. When you have a larger piece, it's going to be like maybe 2 or 3 coils till you get to a finger height. Then it's when you're going to start blending again. Okay, so go to a finger height. So if I stop here, I would measure my next coils, add it up to my finger height here, and then I would blend those in. So you want to blend only up to a finger height. You don't want to add a bunch of coils and try to blend them all at once. Okay, it makes it unstable, and you can't keep control of its form. So once again, I'm going to blend the inside first, pushing down. Use my fingers as a support on the outside. Use my hand to turn the wheel. Then I'm going to blend sideways. Okay. What's your name again?
Emily.
Okay. Okay. Were you the guidance counselor?
I was getting my laptop.
Okay. So I blend sideways to make sure that it's smooth. Then I'm going to blend the outside. Now, one thing about blending, I'm using my fingers. I'm not using anything else, just using my fingers. I'm going to go sideways here too as well. Some students don't want to push hard on the clay and get dirty. So they take a sponge and water and then they try to blend it that way. And just rub the clay with the sponge and water. Yes, that will blend it, but it'll only blend the surface. It doesn't combine the coils together. So when you do that, it looks like it's blended, but then as it dries, you'll see the cracks develop from where they just blended the surface, and it could just like pop off rings. Okay, so you want to make sure that you push down with your finger and that you blend with your thumbs or your fingers. So you want to push down to combine them together. And plus, when you blend the surface, then you have a thick coil pot because you're not combining it together, so you're not getting to a 1/4 inch as well. And the thing about it is that, like I said, we make everything in here 1/4 inch thick. It's not that you can't make things thicker, but then you just have to let things dry for a long time. There's artists that use big coils like this, and they make a huge pillar and they carve really deep into it and stuff. But then they let it sit in a warehouse for 6 months to let it dry. Okay, so you don't have the time to do that. And another way to think about this is that, and so when you put it in the kiln, if it's really thick, it looks dry on the outside, but it's wet on the inside. Then that water tries to evaporate, and that breaks apart your project as well. And one way to think about that is, has anybody ever had eat hot dogs out of a freezer, like you heat in a microwave? Has everybody done that? When you store a hot dog in the freezer and you take it out and put it in a microwave and you zap it for a minute or two. Well, it comes out and it feels hot on the outside, but then you bite into it and it's cold in the middle. That's because it hasn't penetrated. And that's the same way with the clay. If it's too dry, it's too wet, and it's really thick, then it'll look like it's dry on the outside, but it's actually still wet on the inside. And speaking of that, Hoover Dam, I've been there, and they poured all the cement. The cements are like, several feet thick, 30 feet thick, and they still do core samples. This is made back in the 20s, and they drill into the cement and pull a core out to see where it's at drying, because it's still drying to this day. Hoover Dam, the cement, because it was so thick. Okay, so you keep doing this, and you keep building, finger height, blend, and then let's say you're done for the day. You're done for the day. Save this for a second. Show you something in a minute. You're done for the day. What's the first thing you're going to do? Initials appear on the bottom. So you're going to take it off the banding wheel, initials appear on the bottom or a board, and then don't leave it on the banding wheel. Put it on the board or on your shelf. Now, you put your initials up here on the bottom. If it's really small, then you could wrap it all the way. But as you start building, you don't want to wrap it all the way. You want to make sure this edge is wet. So you can mist it, or you can take your finger, put some water on there, and rub the edge to make sure that you're adding a little bit moisture on there. Then you take your plastic, you put it on here, and then you're going to poke it in the middle, and then you're going to rub the edge. That secures it, so that way that's where you're going to add tomorrow. So you want to keep that as moist as possible. Then you kind of cup it tight, because remember, you want to dry things from the bottom to the top, because you want your bottom to firm up. So when you add things on there, it's going to be able to support the weight, because when the clay starts firming up, it's able to be a little bit more stronger. But you don't want to have it where it's really dry on the bottom and really wet on top. You always want to monitor that. So once you get a little taller, you might want to wrap the bottom with plastic so you don't want it to dry out anymore, and then maybe the middle is a little bit more exposed, or your middle is a little looser, okay? So you keep doing that. If it's small like this, you can lift it up a little bit and just tuck a little bit of the plastic in the middle on your board or on your shelf, just so the bottom's a little bit. Then you come in the next day, pull the plastic off, check the bottom, make sure it's yours, and start working again, okay? Okay. Now, once again, you're being graded on something that is the coil pot. It can be just a cylinder. It's a straight cylinder that comes up this way. It's leveled at the top. It's clean and smooth. That's fine. But if you want to vary your shape, you want to have some little bit of creativity, you can vary by going out, going in, that kind of thing. If you're going to do that, you can take the coils. You take the coil, and if you want to go out, you would put it on the outside edge. So wherever you're going to start, put it on the outside edge. Once again, you'll blend where you start, blend where you stop, but as you go out, you can see how it goes out. Then you just blend it at an angle this way, blend underneath this way, and you can go out this way. Now you can go out as far as you want to till what kicks in? Gravity in a fall, okay? But doesn't mean you can't do that. Doesn't mean you can't go way out like this. I made a vessel one time. It came up and it went way out like this, and it came way in like this. For me to go way out like that, what I had to do is I did 2 inches a day. So I do 2 inches, and then I would add plastic to the edge, let that part firm up a little bit, wrap the bottom part, and so I do 2 inches a day, 2 inches a day this way. It took me like 3 weeks to do. Okay, so you can go out like that, you can go in that, but it takes a little time. If you go too fast, it'll collapse on itself. If you want to go in, where would you put the coil? Inside edge. So if I put a coil on the inside edge, it's going to close itself off that way. And you would just blend the inside at an angle this way, blend the outside, that kind of thing. Okay, so you can go in and out however you want to do it. And that's when it comes to like being creative. When you're starting to be creative, you would design the project however you want to design it. Like you see the boot was done. You don't have to have a circle as a base. You can have a different shape of a base. And then they just, did the coils this way. And then when they got here, then it came up like this. Okay. Same thing with this. They made in and out. And they decided to put a face on it, so you can put a face on it if you want to. Same thing with the fish. Start off the oval, then it kind of went out and went in, and that kind of thing. So you don't have to do a circle if you don't want to. If you choose another shape, that's fine. If you're doing a shape that has a point on it, like you want to do a heart or a diamond or something like that, that has a point on it, you don't want to point it while you're building. So you just run your coil like arc, so it's rounded, so that way you can build it. Then at the end, you can pinch it so it's sharper. Okay. Other ways to make it creative, you could. I had one person make it look like a lighthouse. I made a lid for it. They put a candle in there. I've had people carve things. Maybe the top has like a scalloped edge or a different sign of edge. People may add arms to it. I mean, however you want to do it, it's still up to you. It's however your creativity is limited by your imagination. So, if you have an idea of something you want to do, then, talk to me. Like I've had people attempt to do like the fish or something like that. That's fine. I will help you with it, but just be aware that's something that it takes a little bit more effort. And if you want to do that, that's great. But remember, you have to have patience for it. Okay. Recap. You can choose a color clay you want to use. You want to either red or white. Remember, you're doing 2 projects in red, 2 projects in white. Wedge a clay if you need to wedge it. Then you're going to get a ball and you're going to make your base. How wide does the base have to be? 4 to 6 inches. How thick does a base have to be? Less than a half, more than a quarter. Okay, somewhere between there. Okay. Set that aside. Use your banding wheel. Then you start rolling your coils. Cut off pieces. Make them into hot dog shapes. Start rolling them in your palm. You roll it, misting with water as you're rolling. So roll, 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 mist, roll, 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 because you want to keep that clay flexible. Okay. How thick are you going to roll your coils to? How much? Half inch. Half inch. Okay. How long do they have to be? Doesn't matter. Okay. You just want to make sure it's a half inch. Once you have it rolled out, what are you going to do to the ends? Just pinch off an inch. You don't have to check them. Just pinch. I check just to show you. So all you do is remember your digit, your finger is an inch. So just pinch them off. Put the extra clay aside that way. Okay. You want to roll how many at a time? 4 to 6. Okay. Then you can start building. Your first coil, you take your base. You can attach it where you start. Coil it around. Attach it where it ends on the coil, and then you can blend the inside and the outside. Both smooth it on the inside and the outside. Keep building to finger height. That's when you add your next set of coils. When you get to the top, you level it off, clean the bottom. Now, when you wrap it tight. Make sure the top edges are wrapped tight. The bottom, make sure there's a in the bottom. Other ways to clean your project. Now, this clay is still too wet. You have to let it dry a little bit. So not quite to leather hard, but a little bit more firm than this. There's other tools you can use to make your project smooth. Once you smooth it as much as you can with your finger, you can use this. This is called a black rubber rib. It's flexible. It's a little hard rubber. It's an oval shape. It has a rounded edge right here. That's for smoothing. It's beveled. And then it has a hard edge right here, and that's for scraping. What's the difference between smoothing and scraping? Okay, scraping takes it off. Smoothing just what? Smooths it. It doesn't remove any clay. And this clay is still too wet. But if I were, because some clay will come off. So I take this and just drag it across. You see this is because it's too wet. But you see that it's actually taking some clay off. But if I use the other end, it's actually going to scrape clay off that way. Okay, so you can make it smooth that way as well. When the clay is a little taller and a little firmer, once again, this is too wet, you can use this. This is a paddle, wooden paddle. Once again, it has a flat edge, so that way for things that are squared or flat, and then it has a beveled edge for things that are rounded. And so what you do is you put your hand, make sure your hand's inside to support it, and of course it would be taller, and you're just going to tap. So if you have a lot of bumps in your project, you can tap it, and you keep your hand on the inside as support, and that just tapping it is going to smooth any bumps out. Okay, you don't want to spank it. Okay, you're going to ruin your project. Okay, so you just want to tap it, tap, tap, tap. Also, if you wanted to square it off, you can use this. Once again, you see the clay pulling away from it. That's because it's too wet. You want your clay to firm up before you do this. I'm just showing you so that way you have some idea of how it works. Okay, once it's the right height, you want to make sure your top is level. If you have an uneven top, you'll be points off. You want to make sure it can be a different shape if it's a deliberate shape you're trying to make. There's like, well, I want it to be at an angle because of this. No, I mean, it should be level unless you have, like, if you're making scalped edges or things like that, or triangles, or however you want to do it, that's fine. Once it dries a little hard, you can clean it up with these. These are called lube tools. Lube tools, like a band of metal. They have different ends on them. This is a large one. This is a medium one. We have really tall, tiny ones for carving. These are for trimming and carving. And what you do is, once this is leather hard, you can trim the edge of your project. Like this, see how this has all this stuff sticking out? Once it's leather hard, you can take it and drag it and trim it this way. Once again, this clay is too wet to use this because all it does is it clogs it up. But just to give you an idea, then you can take a sponge and smooth it after you trim it that way as well. Okay, but you don't want the clay to be bone dry. You want it to be around leather hard, a little bit drier than leather hard before you start using these. You can also use this to even the top up. You can use your fillet knife to trim the top if you want to. And if you're not sure on how to trim your top, then what would you do? Ask me, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay. Once again, on Monday, you can start this project if you want to. You continue working on your pinch pot. You'll get another demonstration on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, when you come into work, you can either work on any of those 3 projects, or you can continue on your pinch pot. And on Thursday, you'll get your box, and then you'll have all your projects for this semester more or less, except for the last one. And then I just want you to keep working on a daily basis whenever you come in. Any questions on this? Okay, we have about 50 minutes. Also on weekends, on Fridays, or whenever you're not going to be here for a long period of time, you always want to wrap your stuff up tight. Wrap it really tight. Even if you're trying to let it dry, let's say you want to let it dry to leather hard, you still want to wrap it tight. You want to monitor the drying. If you leave it loose, it's going to dry out over the weekend because they don't run the air conditioner during the weekend. So it gets really warm in here and it'll dry out your projects. You don't want to soak your project. If you soak your project, the water, what happens is it's like a greenhouse effect. If you wrap it in plastic and there's a lot of water in there, it makes condensation and it just keeps wetting your project, and your project will fall apart. After people come in and say, somebody new and somebody messed my project, and it's like all like cracked and moist and looks like a pile of mess, whatever. So no, you soaked it. You're not supposed to soak it. Okay, so you just want to mist it, so it's just introduce some water to it and then wrap it tight. Okay, you never want to have freestanding water in any of your projects. Okay. Any questions? Okay, you have about 50 minutes to do what you need to do. Make sure your project's wrapped tight if it's not wrapped tight right now.